Good morning, lovelies. Today, I'm reacting to your hot takes on my own series, CaFae Latte. Now, by now, I've been creating skits in this ongoing series for over a year and a half, with the first skit dropping on February 3rd, 2023. I now have almost 500 skits, a CaFae Latte cookbook, and next year I'll be publishing Heart of Iron, which is the first of what will be a fantasy series starring the CaFae Latte characters and world. Needless to say, there's a lot of material and a lot of fans. I was going to say over 400,000 on TikTok, except there was this whole thing with a hacker who got into my account and stole it from me. So then I started up a new account to start over, and then TikTok actually, came through and gave me the old account back. So there's a lot of fans, okay? It was a whole thing. I've got I got the socials in the description of this video, so you can just click that and follow me there. The point is, there's a lot of fans, a lot of people, and everyone has their own opinions. So today, let's dive into some more controversial opinions. Maybe I can shed some light into my decisions, or at least laugh at some of the crazier takes. Note that I am keeping all of these takes anonymous. I am blessed with a very healthy, supportive fan base, but the best way to enforce a toxic-free zone is to remove temptation entirely. Put them on my laptop, and then I also divided them into categories because some of them were more similar than others. So, first up, we have the Bob-centric takes. I really want Bob to see the guy she had a fling with, where she was saying she felt trapped at the idea of going on a date. I'd love for her to become actual friends with benefits with him. He seemed really nice. That character's name was David. I did actually intend for him to be a recurring character, but then, I ended up getting with a bunch of different recurring characters. Because that was before we had the new staff, Husnia, Drek, Raythu, and the like, and so my focus ended up shifting to them, and it just kind of fell by the wayside. He might make a return appearance, but that is kind of low priority. I do apologize for that. Bob should have a partner at some point. No, she's aromantic. She doesn't want one. Also, I hate the pair the spares trope, and I've already paired so many people. Like, we got JC and Nicole, we have Cyrus and Raythu, we have Janine and Patrick. Not every single character needs a partner, and Bob especially does not. I would like to see Kelly and Bob get together. Bob usually doesn't like long romantic commitments in a relationship, and Kelly stopped being a sugar baby for men. For the most part, she's transitioning to OF. But what if Bob wants to explore a more financial-based commitment to a relationship, and Kelly wants to try being a baby to a woman/female fae? I feel like there's potential there. Write a fanfiction, because I'm probably not going to do that. Not to discredit this idea, it's worth thinking about. However, part of what made Bob hesitate to claim the queer label for herself was because she's only ever been sexually attracted to men, or at least mask-presenting people. So I don't know if this would or could canonically work. And then, of course, there's the whole thing of Kelly being JC's little sister. So then you have the workplace thing, and Bob would see that as because JC is her employee, and she's starting a thing with she wouldn't do that for that reason alone. But hey, write a fanfic. I don't care. It might be interesting to see another fae character, maybe without the tolerance and morals Bob and Cyrus have toward humans. I'd also love to see more from the Tooth Fairy. You're gonna love Heart of Iron, because the main antagonist is a fairy who does not have the same tolerance and morals Bob and Cyrus have toward humans. That's the whole point of their conflict. Tooth Fairy doesn't pop up. Not yet. I am planning on her to show up in the books at some point. She's just not going to be in the first one. Why is it always hot flamingo pink? Doesn't Bob have any other colors at her side? She does, but this is more eye-catching, and because we live in a patriarchy that has vilified anything and everything feminine, pink is a more harsh punishment. Hot take, Bob used to be scary, but they're not really shown doing much anymore, and the tell-don't show of her past, even if she can't lie, makes her seem, what's the word for out of shape with magic? Rusty? I have definitely been doing less or fewer Bob curses, but that's mostly because the crew has expanded so much, and I don't want every single episode to revolve around Bob cursing people, or even Bob herself. A lot of times I want a skit that's, let's focus on what Drek is doing today. Let's focus on what, the Halloween special was John and Herla. Bob was nowhere to be found because she was busy on the other side of town. So it's I definitely do feel where this person is coming from, and like I kind of agree with them, but she's not rusty. She just has been out of the spotlight a little bit recently. With the book Heart of Iron, she is less powerful magically because she can't just curse or bless people who randomly walk into her cafe. She needs their full name or a piece of their body DNA, or to plant an object on them. So there's some more limitations to your powers, but she's not out of shape and she's not rusty. There's going to be a body count at the end of Heart of Iron. So again, I think this person's really going to like that. Bob should break the fourth wall more. I find it really funny. She should. Our next category of hot takes is ships. And oh boy, did you guys have some. It may be an odd choice, but I would love for, they write Val, but I think they mean Vlad, the vampire who is Bob's ex-boyfriend. I would love for Vlad and Nancy, Lindsay's toxic sister, to be in a relationship. I could totally see them being an evil power couple or extremely toxic for each other. And Oscar is definitely my favorite. I love how optimistic he is despite how horrible his life has been, and you basically make angels to glorify chicken night lamps. The grammar on this one is a little off, which makes it a little hard to understand, but I want to focus on the first part. So Vlad is Bob's vampire ex-boyfriend, who tried to mind control Nicole and hurt them and all that jazz. Nancy is Lindsay's sister. They're both witches. They were the two witches who tried to kidnap Bob and like sell her for parts. And then Lindsay decided to go on her own redemption arc while Nancy didn't and tried to curse Bob harder. Like, it was a whole thing. It would be interesting because, like, here's the thing. Like, Vlad has like such a negative view towards humans. He sees humanity as like so much lesser than vampires. He's a vampire supremacist. So like he would be interested in Nancy like just for, physical attraction. I could see that. He would probably want to get some use out of her magic. She would at best be a tool for him. I don't know how she would probably feel the same way towards him, like see him as an opportunity for revenge or power or whatever. So they would be absolutely toxic for each other. But there might be a glimmer of evil power couple, because like that's the only way they would really get together or work together is if their goals aligned. Yeah. Vlad is in Heart of Iron too, by the way. JC and Nicole should move in together. Yeah, they should. That is an arc that I have planned coming up. I know that the stereotype for especially sapphic relationships is U-hauling, but I am an aromantic asexual person, and first of all, I'm not that good at writing romantic subplots. And then the other thing is, when I do write them, I tend to prefer slow burns, ones that like you get to see the relationship form and build over time. JC's sister and her friend are both hot for Oscar's bod. It would be a decent first poly relationship, but I suspect Oscar is clueless. He absolutely would be clueless, and he would also, when they did finally make their intentions known, he would politely turn them down, because he's probably not interested in that, and certainly not in people so young. Like, I know it's the stereotype for everyone, for especially older men, to, like, be attracted to younger women, and those definitely do exist, and kind of skeevy. But Oscar is not like that. He would want people with, like, experience. Life experience, I mean. I think even though Cyrus and Raythu have said they're not poly, the nurse whose ex was a streamer should come back and them both look at each other and contemplate it. I mean, Raythu is Demi and Cyrus is Ace, so they don't have the whole, like, oh yes, I look at this person and want to, have them in my bed. There's like an eyelash in my eye. No, it was a bit of my bang. Never mind. So they probably won't, but it sounds like there's some interest in having some poly representation in this channel. I have to think about that. It probably won't be Cyrus and Raythu, though. There should be an age-appropriate customer Drek starts crushing on who is ironically also named Bob. That would be hilarious. I don't know what I'm going to do with Drek, honestly. Like I said, I hate the pair the spares trope, but he's also an 18-year-old gay man, so I don't know. Maybe we'll see. There were also, of course, a ton of calls for Hurla and Ghost Hunter John to have an enemies to lovers arc. And I honestly don't know what I'm going to be doing with that. If I am going to make them boyfriends or platonic soulmates. Because again, I hate the pair the spares trope. Like, why does every single character need to be in a romantic relationship? They don't. They really don't. So yeah, but at the same time, I don't think I have an MM relationship in this series. Except for the days when Reithu is a man. There's like, we got sapphic, we got a straight one, we have a lot of queer ones, but no strict MM. So maybe, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I would not get your hopes up, though. You're talking to an aromantic, asexual person who has little to no interest in anything romantic. Generally speaking, when I end up writing a romantic subplot, I've known from the get-go, like from the start, from the inception of these characters, that they're going to wind up together. But a lot of CaFae Latte is me making it up as I go along, which is stretching me in and testing me in my storytelling ability in ways that I'm just not used to, because I'm much more of a planner and I like to plan things out really far in advance. And it's really hard to do that in a series that you're trying to post a video every single day, and you want them to be relevant. You want them to like address what's actually going on in people's day-to-day lives. So yeah, I don't know. It's a challenge. Back to Hurla and Ghost Hunter John. No idea. Probably won't happen. I'd apologize, but I'm not sorry. So next we have plot and arcs. This is the one where it's like, people having hot takes on specific storylines. I would like to see something a little bit darker and controversial, maybe diving a little bit more into the jick/N-word and how Bob and Nicole reacts to that. Oh, and also JC and Nicole moving in together and or having a serious discussion on kids. We know JC doesn't want any, but we don't know what Nicole really wants. It's because I haven't thought about that, and that is an oversight on my part. If you want something darker and controversial, again, I feel like a broken record at this point, but you're going to love the book. You are. I should have a skit where we talk about kids at some point. That'll probably, I'll address that when they talk about moving in together. I think Bob should have more arcs with parts of her past coming back to haunt her, especially when she was a not great person. Book. Again, the book. I do tend to, when I'm writing books and novels, I do tend to go pretty dark. I still believe in happy endings, or at least hopeful ones, but I do tend to dive into the darker parts of humanity. With social media, on the other hand, I don't know why I'm reluctant to do that. It's a lot of reasons. Part of it is the fact that we're on TikTok, which is notorious for its what's the words? When they tell you, when they don't want you to, censorship. I'm an author, I know my words. But yeah, TikTok is notorious for its hair trigger censorship policies. So that's one reason. Another reason is that I am much better at acting out happier, fluffier stuff because, again, I have no official or formal acting training. None of that. I have training in writing. I know how to do that. I do that professionally. I am not a professional actor. I cannot cry on command. I have a really hard time showcasing, like physically expressing things like rage and grief. Mostly because, like, in my real life, I tend to handle them very privately. Like, I'll go away, I'll, lock myself in my room type of deal. Like, I'll feel the emotion and then go out and handle whatever is causing the problems. Like when the hacking thing happened and I was like seriously panicking and scared and angry and frustrated at the same time, I was consoled by the fact that I wasn't just reliant on TikTok. I have other platforms, and also, I had other stuff to do that day. So I was like, I was going to like a doctor's appointment. I had to go shoe shopping for the donor appreciation dinner at 180 degrees. I had the donor appreciation dinner at 180 degrees. Like, I had stuff to do, and so I was mostly just focusing on that because that hacker was not entitled to my time or mental energy. which is great for me emotionally and like as a person, but for acting, it's like, just feel like a time when you were really angry or sad. I'm like, and I'm just kind of stone faced because that's how I deal with that. So there's that. It's a one woman show. So, like, for things like, a fight scene, which I have a lot of those in my books, including Heart of Iron. Um, that's not going to happen here in my tiny apartment corner. So yeah, and then there's also just the fact that with, because I'm posting a TikTok skit every single day outside of hacks or mental health breaks, um, it's just a lot easier on me. Like it takes a lot. It's a bit draining to act, to create content, 'cause especially since I tend to do a week's worth of content in a single day. It's just so much easier for me to do it that way. But if it's a heavier topic, then it drains you more. Whereas if it's funny, silly, or at least has some like, fluffy hurt comfort vibes going on, it's a lot easier for me to do that and I have to take fewer mental health breaks. And also there's enough negativity in the world. Yeah, now granted, in this last batch I am directly addressing the results of the election and the emotions that people are going through with that, and that took a chunk out of me. I'm not going to be able to do that every single time. Like, yeah. So that is why even though I would like to have harsher or darker storytelling in CaFae Latte, there's all those reasons why I can't or won't. However, when it comes to novel writing, that is a different arena altogether. And yes, there will be darker stuff. Yes, there is characters from Bob's past coming back to haunt her. Yes, there are fights and body counts and blood. Like, there's really uncomfortable talks about, the evils of the world and people who perpetuate them. And what does it mean to be redeemed? Like, can you be redeemed if you go that far? And like, who decides? Is it you? Is it your victims or their families? Is it some other third party? Like, what is that? And that's going to be a theme not just for the first book, but probably throughout the entire series. I didn't like the Wraithu love potion arc. Okay. Like I said, there's almost 500 CaFae Latte skits out there. Over a dozen multi-skit arcs. You're bound to not like at least one of them. Like, there are some that I don't like all that much. Like, I look back on them and I'm just like, I did not do a good job with that, or I did not handle that well, or like, oh, I wish I had gone a different direction, or portrayed it better. Yeah, that's fine. I don't think Janine should have been forgiven so quickly by Patrick. Again, I suck at romance plots. That's especially with an enemies to lovers like that one. They are not in Heart of Iron. They will be in the sequel Heart of Silver, and that's my redemption. That we're going to be redoing that. We're going to be revisiting that particular enemies to lovers arc. This one's interesting. I know the Karen customers are like this show's bread and butter, but the one-off ones are getting kind of stale. This is not so when it ties into something interesting like a new event, a new character, the overarching story, etc. I can absolutely understand that, especially if you're a binger, so you like watch as many episodes as humanly possible in a single setting. Like, it is a pretty, standard plot that I use over and over again. And you're right, this is the show's bread and butter. And I do try to find new stories, new outrageous Karens. I try to base them in reality. But at the end of the day, it is kind of just the same old, which is why I have break those up with those big arcs, or with, friendship drama or relationship drama or whatever. I will say that the one-off episodes are a really great way. In fact, they're probably the best way for me to get new fans. Because think about it, like, this overarching story has been going on for over a year and a half at this point. And, dropping them into like the love potion arc or whatever, it would kind of feel like starting Game of Thrones on season 6. It's like, who are these people? What's going on? What do they want? Whereas the one-offs are like, yeah, these are established characters, but at the same time, you don't need to know their full backstory or histories. You just need to know that's a fairy sorceress, that's a human baker, this is a Karen, and so like that's how I tend to get a lot more new fans and new followers, because they see the one-offs and they can more easily follow that, and then they're like, oh, this is so cool, oh my gosh, there's like 500 other episodes, let's start from the beginning and do that. So that's why I keep doing those one-offs and those Karen customers. They also, analytics, they perform really well because they're the most relatable, especially to those of us who have worked food service and customer service. So yeah, but at the same time, I do feel it, and they do feel kind of stale when I'm doing them too. So like that's why I try to mix it up as much as possible. Not really a hot take, honestly. I agree with you. Eric. Here's a hot take, but I feel like Eric was done kinda dirty. Now, while yes, he does deserve to go to jail for aiding in a kidnapping, Bob and JC didn't really help aside from just talking. Now, while talking can help Eric as a guy who needs to be shown that gaining immortality is not worth it. Also, I think it seems unfair that JC and the other characters were given proper care and time to develop bad grammar here, sorry. Eric didn't get much screen time and was just thrown away in order for the story to have some more stakes at the cost of a character and JC's good friend who was there for them at their lowest. Thank you and good night. Yeah, that's a take. Eric didn't get a whole lot of screen time, although I did try to put as much personality into it as I did, because like I said, there were already so many other characters, and I didn't want to spend all this time on Eric because I still wanted the portrayal to be a surprise, although I did foreshadow as much as possible. Interesting, like, Eric is a guy who needs to be shown that gaining immortality is not worth it. How, though? Without giving it to him at the cost of someone's life, by the way, how would you show that? Like, yeah, he is kind of being shown that, honestly, by being in jail and losing his friends. Yeah, that's a take. Don't worry, we're not going to see the last of him. 1, I still love Eric. 2, I wanted Eric to have done something darker. So maybe Cyrus isn't killed, but an innocent is because of Eric's actions. I would love for CaFae Latte to be a bit darker, but that's what we have fan fiction for. And Heart of Iron. This is probably not that hot, I'll have to think of it more later. The next take is literally, I think Eric should get a redemption arc. He did a bad thing 100%, but he was struggling with family stuff, so maybe I empathize too much, but if there was any chance to get my parents to recognize/accept my autism, there isn't much I wouldn't do. I don't think he should get immortality, but he should find a way to be happy and okay without it. This is the problem with being a storyteller, because you will inevitably have fans. You have some who are like, this should have been darker, and then you have others who are like, he should be totally redeemed. This should have been fluffier. Like, it should have a happier ending. And, like, you can't really reconcile them all that much. There is ultimately going to be people who are disappointed or who think that the story should have gone a different way. That is just the reality of that. And I'm kind of happy that Eric's the one, because Eric's the controversial character, so of course he's going to bring this out. Yeah, but don't worry, he will be back. For all you Eric lovers. Like, when I went to Spirit Halloween this past Halloween, in order to like stock up on as many cheap costume stuff as possible, I did get a prisoner costume specifically because we are going to be seeing Eric in jail at some point. He is going to come back. It's probably going to be because I want to do a Krampus arc in December. And so it's probably going to be January or February-ish. Maybe March. I guess it depends on, like, if I have to take time off for the holidays or, what else is going on. If we're still going to have a country by then, who knows. Last one of the Eric. I don't like how Eric is never mentioned again. They all built truth with him and even became friendly or friends with him, and then after one video, he's never mentioned again. He just disappears like that trauma of losing someone you love/care about to their own actions. I understand the plot progressing, but I do hate when in shows or books or anything, they blow past trauma as that happens in the story and focus more on their previous trauma or progression of the plot. It's not just Eric's storyline I feel that way about, it's just the only one I can think of. I'm not saying it should be sad, but every once in a while someone going, I miss them despite what they did, or I still can't believe that happened, after a while, after the plot point happens, would be nice. I do really love the series though. I've just rewatched and hyperfixated on it so much that I love the chance to give feedback. And that feedback is very much appreciated. I am very fortunate in that I don't have any trauma in my life. Knock on wood. I've never been hurt the way that Eric hurt these characters, so like I don't understand trauma and trauma responses as intrinsically as an unfortunate amount of the population does. When bad things happen to me, like I address them and I deal with them, but at the same time, it's like after it's handled, I don't personally think about it all that much because like why should I? It's done. It happened. I've handled what I could handle. I have other stuff to do now. And that's kind of reflected in my storytelling, I guess. So, and again, like I said, Eric is going to be coming back. So like I will probably have to consider this when I am writing up those scripts. Yeah, this is why I did this video, is for this feedback. Jennifer Charles gets their bundle of hot takes. JC should let Bob curse their family members. This is the type of hot take that I love. The types that's not even... the type of hot take that's not just like what fans are arguing about, but also what the characters themselves disagree about. Because Bob would agree with this. She would be like, I wish that JC would let me curse their family members because they deserve it. But JC themselves is like, no, this is my fight. And like, I appreciate the backup, but like, I don't want you to waste your magical energy on this. I don't want anyone to waste any more time on this. Like, I just want them gone and out of my life. So yeah, and there's also the whole like, you know, it's my battle, my fight type of deal going on there. Of course, when it comes to other people, then JC's like, let me fight for you. It's like, so there's that aspect going on. I mean, there's a good argument for letting Bob curse the family, and there's also a good argument for not having her do that. At the end of the day, it was JC's call, and Bob respects that. I want JC's parole officer or the cop that arrested them to turn up at the cafe. Not sure if they'd cause trouble or be happy that they had turned their life around. Maybe both turn up and have different views. But if it's the second, then I want the cop to be the one that's happy for JC. That would be, because like in the CaFae Latte TikTok series, JC went to juvie. That is canon. In the book, it was prison, by the way. And we do meet their parole officer because they're still actively meeting with her. Sounds like this person... Here's the thing. I am obviously BLM and defund the police, but I know too many police officers where I cannot say ACAB. I could say most, but not all. And I feel like this commenter is in a similar boat. That's just the vibe I'm getting here. And that's totally fine. I am probably going to have to put this in my idea document. I do have a Word document that's like literally all of just ideas for fillers. Like I have one document that's for the overarching plots, like the overarching story. And then I have one for like stuff like this where it's you know, one shots and no script idea fillers. There is. And there's no promise of if or when or if I'll even do these, but I like having it because this document has saved my ass so many times. And it allows me to keep creating a lot of content very quickly. Thank you for the idea, by the way. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but you know, I'll have to think about that and how I want to do that. I'm not sure how much of a hot take this is, but I imagine on nights where JC is struggling with addiction that they end up just baking at ass AM, hence all the fudge after the Vlad stuff. Yes, JC is absolutely a stress baker. 100%. And I actually do have it's in my fillers list where like JC is struggling with addiction one day and it's just like, I just need to like bake everything. And then like after work, I'm going to need to like exercise or like shoot something or something because like, I don't want to like I need to keep my mind off of it, even though I really want to get high right now. But yeah, so much baking. The episode where Bob points out JC's new bracelet and JC asked if their fly was down. Does JC have some interesting piercings? I've never asked myself that question, so I don't know. The exact quote, because and the joke is that Bob mentions that JC has a new accoutrement, which is like a fancy word for clothing or accessory. And so like, and JC had no idea what accoutrement meant. So that's why they asked that if their fly was down. Yeah, I don't think about that stuff. And I don't know. JC has been broke and poor for like 95% of their life. It's only since working at CaFae Latte that they've had some sense of financial stability. So they would hesitate to make such a purchase. I don't know. Probably not, but that's just me. Hot takes on the world and magic. Given Nicole has some Fae ancestry, it's a shame it's not explored what that does to her magic. So Nicole's Fae ancestry is not necessarily canon. When she was first introduced, she and Bob figured that she might have some Fae ancestry, like way up there, but it's not confirmed. I actually haven't really thought about it since then. And, maybe it would explain, like, why she's, naturally inclined towards magic. It could be something in her blood. It's just not something I've given much thought. Although it would be kind of hilarious if she did have a fairy ancestor and they, being immortal, showed up and, like, bumped into her. That would be interesting. I'm going to add that to my idea list. Hold on. My hot take is not all love spells are immoral, like a self-love spell or a spell to make your partner feel your love like a hug when you go long distance. I don't think that's a hot take. I think you are right. In fact, before CaFae Latte, I did have a little skit that was based on a comic that I saw circulating around the internet where someone is literally making a love potion for themselves because they're depressed and they hate themselves. So like, they're saying they're making a love potion and someone's arguing with them saying how it's like, it's, cruel and unusual and takes people's free will and blah, blah, blah. And the person's agreeing with them like, yeah, it is. And the person's like, so who are you giving it to? And the potion maker responds like, me, and guzzles it. So that would be interesting. I feel like they're like, the magic that I have created here and the type of magic that I like to create in all of my works is amoral. That is, it doesn't have a moral compass. It's a tool. Like, it's only as bad as what it's used for. Now, granted, some magic is created to do harm, like guns. Guns are not built for world peace. They're not built to make people's lives better. They are designed to hurt. But who's holding it and how and why, that's where it gets to like, well, is it wrong to have this and to use this? Well, it depends. And I think this falls under that category. I put love spells as like, in this world, they're treated like date rape drugs, but those drugs are used as sedatives in hospitals. Like it's the same chemical, I think. Don't quote me on this, but it's the same basic idea. Knock someone out so they don't feel or remember anything that's happening to them. Really great for a surgery, but if you're doing it in a club against their will, that's when it becomes immoral. So yeah, this one I think is just like, I don't think this is a hot take. I think that this person is absolutely right. That would be an interesting, like, load up my love in a rock or a necklace or a bracelet or something and, give it to a person when they're going to go on a trip or go long distance or whatever. That, Stone Street might have to use that. That's a good one. Okay, so this one has been bothering me. The idea of an afterlife has been left pretty ambiguous to fit all of the characters' backgrounds, and I think that's great. But in a collab, Cyrus traveled to not other dimension hell, but actual hell. I know this because Satan references the souls down there. This has been bothering me so much because I just can't seem to wrap my head around this would make sense with the afterlife ambiguity. So this is why I don't like doing collabs anymore. Because then you have to Yeah, and honestly, I don't like I really like doing that collab. That was fun, but like I actually haven't watched a whole lot of his stuff, so I'm not familiar with his world or his world building. I have kept the afterlife ambiguity as ambiguous as possible. And much of the canonical idea is that like, you know, what we think of as angels and demons as Christians and Muslims and Jews or whatever, you know, Abrahamic religions, they're stereotypes of real things. So, you know, Oscar, the seraph, the angel, the literal angel, like, yeah, he's an angel, but like, and he lives in, he hails from and the celestial realm, but God and Jesus don't live there. He's like, that's just what they has have that people have historically leaned into for their own gains. Like they stumbled across humanity and were like, oh, you guys believe in this thing and these creatures called angels that kind of sort of maybe look like us. Okay, yeah, sure, we'll lean into that. Or it could even be the opposite, where like humans ran into angels and then we're like, oh, this is a servant of God because they have wings and they're close to the sky and blah, blah, blah. So, like, and I have kept that purposefully ambiguous because, like, when you're doing urban fantasy or paranormal, you kind of have to. There's just no way to fold magic into the real world and not fundamentally change every aspect of the world. Like, just the United States itself. Think of all the people that we've oppressed in this country, the indigenous population, the transatlantic slave trade, the women, the Latinos, Chinese railroad workers in California. Like, like there's just a never-ending list of atrocities that might not have happened if even one person on the losing side had magic, and then that would have completely changed the course of American and then global history. So like you just can't. You want to keep it as ambiguous as possible, and then because as soon as you start nailing down the hard details, the whole thing falls apart. This is why I tend to go with epic fantasy rather than urban fantasy. Epic fantasy, you're just going from the ground up. Like, it's a totally blank slate. It's a totally different world. But for urban fantasy, like, you gotta justify, like, why does this not exist in this urban fantasy in magic New York City? Or why does this exist in St. like, whatever. And finally, our miscellaneous. I want to see more types of stimming from autistic characters. I believe Alonji has stated that they're not autistic. Very true. I am neurotypical, to my knowledge. And want to be mindful of representation, which I do. Which is, as an autistic person, I appreciate. But the selfish side of me wants to see more stimming like what I do. My boyfriend often puts up with me bouncing my leg up and down when we're lying down in bed together. A lot. I don't even realize I'm doing it half the time. I don't like how they said that their boyfriend puts up with them doing a thing. Although I can see why the bouncing the leg would be a little annoying. So Nicole's stim is this. And it took me so long to be able to master doing this while talking. Not just while talking, but while reading from a script. Because that's what I'm doing when I'm doing these CaFae Latte videos. I read from a script. I have it behind the camera on the phone. And I read from them. So that way I don't miss a line and throw the whole thing off or miss a character. I have so many outtakes of me like trying to do this while saying Nicole's lines in her tone of voice and like messing it up and having to redo it again and again and again. It took so long. Something even more, like something even like bigger than that. I'm not an actor. I love your faith in me. But yeah, so I do apologize with that and with those shortcomings. I can try, but God, I want to love Oscar. I really do. I just can't. Something about him just does not appeal to me. I want Eric back. This person loves a bad boy. And that's totally fine. Even though Oscar was designed to be like as lovable as possible, there are just people out there who like, you just can't like them for whatever reason. Personality clashes or grates on you. Like, there are people in real life that I know who are like, there's nothing inherently wrong with them. There's not like they're not morally reprehensible. They're genuinely nice and friendly and like even actively helping me out, and I just like I have to bite my tongue because I just can't stand them for whatever reason. So like I'll like try to politely avoid them a little bit. Like we all know someone like that, and it's like I don't have a reason for disliking you, which is what makes this worse. That's fine. It happens. I'm sorry, but I don't find Drek all too interesting of a character. I just don't think he has as much substance as the other members of the cast. Yeah, that's accurate. Drek has not been as fully fleshed out as the other characters. I don't think he's even had any major arcs because, like, Raythu has had their major arcs, Love Potion, Cyrus. They've been fully fleshed out. Husnia hasn't had a whole lot of arcs, but she definitely does have a full fleshed out character. And part of that is because I knew going in, like, way before I introduced Husnia, I knew who she was. I knew she was, a mother of young children, so stuck in mommy mode sometimes. I knew she was Muslim. I knew she was actively working for the CIA. Like, I knew all these things about her going in. I knew none of that about Drek. I just knew that he was a teenager. He had ADHD. He was uncertain about himself, I realized that he was gay with him, if that makes sense. Again, we're seeing the planner versus pantser thing, flying by the seat of your pants. That's what we call authors or writers who make it up as they go along. When I'm able to plan things out like Husnia and Raythu and JC and Nicole and Bob and Cyrus and everyone else, I'm able to create more interesting characters with a lot more substance because I've already created that substance and I just pull it up as needed. Drek has been largely pantsed this whole time. And I'm not too upset about that because he is so young. Like, he just turned 18. So he's also trying to figure himself out. So I'm not too upset about that. But yeah, I kind of need to figure out where I want his character to end up because he's just kind of been there. Our final hot take: there should be more virus hating, mainly to spread the word that people do it. Survivor of cancer myself, and people always say it should have killed me, so please share the word. That's all they're saying. I think what they're saying is that this cancer survivor was told that COVID-19 or some other virus, because they would have been immunocompromised, that COVID-19 should have killed them. Which is just like, what the fuck? Like, who actually says that to someone? Seriously, Yeah, that is a problem, and I do want to turn that into a skit at some point. No guarantees on if or when, but it is going on the list. Those are the hot takes. Thank you all for your thoughts and your feedback. I may have been writing stories since I was literally 12 and then publishing them since I was 20, which, oh my god, I'm going to be 30 next year. But as you know, I've only been doing content creation for a few years, and I've only been able to do it full time since summer of 2023. So in that instance, I'm still kind of a babe in the woods. There's also no such thing as a perfect story. Not everyone is going to like the same thing, the same story, no matter how much we improve. Like, there's just no such thing, and that's totally fine. Heart of Iron comes out next year. The Cookbook is out now, and I think a lot of you are going to like it. Regular content resumes next week. Bye, lovelies.